Welcome back, everybody. Now today I've got 5 kitchen gadgets, several of them which I've been waiting several months to review, and others that were just recently suggested to me. So without further delay, let's get right to it. Now usually I introduce my kitchen products when I'm in the kitchen, but it's a beautiful day here in Las Vegas, and I've barely left my house in the last 2 months, so I hope that you can forgive me that I want to sit outside and introduce this particular video. But I'm just going to get started right away with the first item, and that is the zip slicer. I think I first mentioned this in a Q&A quite a while ago. In fact, there's going to be another short Q&A at the end of this video if you're interested, so stick around for that. But the zip slicer is basically a tube. And in this tube, you put grapes or small cherry or grape tomatoes, and then you use this sleeve with a blade in it to slice them. Now this is basically a tube with a notch in it that allows you to swipe this blade, almost swiping like a credit card. You load your cherry tomatoes or grapes in there, and here's your blade. And it supposedly cuts them in half like a guillotine. I've got some beautiful grapes here, and I guess I'm just gonna load it up. Well, that's pretty small now that I look at it. I'm just gonna drop a bunch of them in there and see what happens. See, that's not, I'm not really sure what to do about that. I mean, I just threw a bunch in there. I didn't really spend much time trying to get them perfect. Their instructions just say to load and slice. I can see how people said that the size does matter. Look how perfect the picture shows. I don't have grapes that big. And these are decent sized grapes too. And this might be wrong. We'll see. And, hiya! Wow, that seemed to cut really fast, whatever happened. A traffic jam in the bottom there. Well, the good news and the bad news is that a lot of people said that they were not cut evenly, and I can see that. They're definitely not cut. They're cut. They're not cut evenly. And that's because this is such a big opening. You're going to have massive grapes to not have them kind of moving around in there. It did work. It was very fast. Let me try another round of these. The opening is so much bigger than the grapes. Jostle them around till they're perfect. Well, this looks better than the first one. Let me try this one. I mean, it's still not perfect. They're still kind of bunched up in there. I feel like I'm playing one of those games where you have to get the ball in the hole. And, hiya. Well, it cuts them really fast. Both times I got a bunch stuck in the bottom here. This one's not cut at all. It's a rebel right here. This one's barely cut. This one's not cut either. Actually, I got half of them didn't even get cut. Oh no, I take that back. This one is cut. Look, I got a little, it's got skinned. Wow, that's really uneven. I mean, I guess if you're not worried about how uneven they are. All right, the grapes were just the preliminary. Let's move on to the big leagues now. It looks like they're supposed to go this way. But, you know, when they roll in there, they kind of go wherever they want. I think that looks pretty even, pretty uniform. I'm happy with this. Are we ready? Are you ready? I'm ready. Let's do it. And, you know, they don't exactly fall out like they show in the picture. They're like falling out perfectly cut. Here, they're not falling out. They're just kind of smashed on the bottom here. Take a look. These are actually pretty good. These tomatoes being a little bit closer to the size of the opening, these look pretty good. I mean, I'm gonna try to make it a little more real world. I'm just gonna throw some in there and cut it as fast as I can and see if I get similar results. All right, here we go. Didn't jostle them or anything. Hiya! I did get one fall out. Let's see. With a couple of exceptions, I think it's still pretty good. This right here, I only got skinned a little bit. It got like a skin knee, a little bit of skin came off. But overall, it definitely seemed to work. If you've got larger grape tomatoes or larger grapes, it's gonna work pretty good. If they're smaller, you might have problems with it. But I do think that it works. That was a lot less painful than cutting them by hand, a lot less messy. I like it. It seems to be geared toward tomatoes or regular grapes. I think this runs about 15 bucks. Now, if you look at the ratings on this particular item, this highlights one of the problems that Amazon ratings have. At first glance, you see a 4.4 star rating with over 600 views. That sounds great, doesn't it? You start reading the comments and they're not even about this, they're about something else. So that's one problem Amazon has they haven't been able to fix yet. So when I sifted through the comments of those who actually were talking about the zip slicer and not an egg slicer or whatever else it was, it does seem like the only complaints that I saw were that the tube is quite large. So that food kind of jostles around in there whenever you're trying to cut it. It's kind of hard to get them all lined up perfectly and then slice through them. So that leads to uneven slices. The only other complaint is that the food sometimes gets kind of all smashed towards the bottom when you're slicing it. It'd be hard to cut yourself. You'd have to stick your finger in there. I mean, I guess you could do that. But if you don't mind unevenly sliced food, it's actually perfect. There is kind of a learning curve. It seems like the more I did it, the better I got at it. But although I never got uniform slices ever, because the grapes and the cherry tomatoes I had they were just too small. It did hold up in the dishwasher, but if you want to clean it by hand, it's kind of hard to get in there with any kind of a scrubbing utensil. So even though it may not deliver uniform slices, it does do what it's supposed to do. Next up are these Poach Pods. These are little silicone floating cups that allow you to poach your eggs pretty easily. I paid 10 bucks for a 2-pack of these, but there's a bunch of vendors selling these same things on Amazon. My guess is that they're all buying from the same vendor on Alibaba and they're just rebranding it on Amazon. That's a pretty common practice actually, but it's also just a guess. I'm not sure. So I tried it out. There really isn't much to it, and it's pretty easy to use, and it worked. All you have to do is boil some water, oil or spray the inside of the poach pod. When the water's boiling, you put an egg in here, you put it in the pot, cover it for 5 minutes, and you're good. They said to use a slotted spoon to get it out of there. Some people said they just use their fingers because they said the plastic wasn't that hot. I guess I'll touch it and see. They say run a spoon around the edge and then pop it out. I'm kind of excited here. I guess you could touch that. I'm gonna follow their instructions though. That seems much easier. And there's what we got. That doesn't look too bad, does it? I think it looks pretty good. They say to run a spoon around the edge. It doesn't really seem like it's that stuck. Flip it inside out and push the egg out. Guess like that. I lost a piece there, but there we go. What do you guys think? Let me cut this open. It looks poached. I think it looks pretty poached. So I'm happy to report it did hold up well in the dishwasher. It washes pretty easily. Now, not everyone is going to need something like this. If you're already good at making poached eggs, you don't need another device for it. But maybe if you're one of those people that makes them occasionally and not very good at it, this might work for you. Next up is the Uni-Lid by Copper Chef. And this is a 3-pack of stretchable lids. It can cover bowls, pots, cans, a variety of things. You can use them in place of your lids if you have lost lids in place of plastic wrap. The idea is pretty simple. You just pick the Uni-Lid that's closest to the size of the thing you want to cover, you stretch to fit, and you should have an airtight seal. There's also a pretty hard to read dial on the top of this. It's pretty hard for me to read. But what you're supposed to do is mark the day of the week that you put the lid on there, so when you're sifting through your fridge, you can see how long it's been in there. If it was easier to read, it would be more useful. So I bought this 3-pack at Bed Bath & Beyond for 10 bucks in late 2019, actually. And it's been sitting in my stack of things to review ever since then. So I first tried the small size, which on the packaging they show being used for grapefruit. I thought that was kind of unusual. I'm like, why don't you use it for a can instead? And that's because it doesn't fit on a can. I'm gonna start with the smallest of the lids. Now on their box, they show the two larger ones being used in containers and the small one being used on a piece of fruit. I think I'd probably use it over a can before I use it on fruit. Let's see what I got. First up, can of soda. Now obviously that's definitely not gonna work. Not gonna work. In fact, if you wanna cover your can of soda, you might want something like these Fresh Top caps, which I reviewed last year. Snaps on there. That's probably a better option. They do have smaller sizes that supposedly will fit on cans, but this 3-pack did not. Let's upgrade something a little bit larger. How about a can of soup? Well, I can already tell this is kind of loose. This would work, but it's not gonna be airtight. The problem is I don't have, this is a standard can size. All my cans I checked are about the same size as this. Let me find something with a bigger opening and see if I can get it to work. Now I know that you wouldn't normally use this for something like this. I'm just for demonstration purposes because it has a slightly wider opening. I need something slightly larger than this can. I don't have anything else. And let me see here. Oh yeah, that actually works. Let me put some water in here and see how airtight this really is. All right, I now have water in there. This could be disastrous, but it'll be fun to find out either way. And, oh, look at this. Oh wow. I'm actually a little bit impressed. I'm actually surprised. I'm surprised more than anything. That actually worked. So to me, the small size in the 3-pack is kind of useless. It might fit over a few small containers, doesn't fit over a can. That's what most people are going to use it for. The 6 and the 12-piece sets do have a smaller one that I do believe fits on cans. My 3-pack did not. So the medium-sized lid did seem much more useful. I was able to fit it over a pot, a dish, a bowl. It did seal water from spilling. It was airtight. I was surprised about that. I also used it on a square dish. Even though they have a square one in the larger sets, the promotional materials show a round one being used over a square bowl. It did work, but it was not airtight. That's the medium boy right there. That's pretty good. And they say you can stack. Yeah, I would say you could stack that. I'll put some water in this one too and try it out. Putting this on seems like it's going to be a bit of a learning curve. I don't feel like I have it down yet. I feel like there's someone at home who's probably really good at these, who's probably cringing at the way I'm doing it. I'm doing my best. If you ever had a kid and taught them to drive and your foot's on that imaginary brake, that's probably what someone's doing right now with me trying to apply these lids. All right, I think that's pretty secure. Let's see here. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. I think we're on a roll here. Would it be better going toward me? I think the instructions say to move it away from you. I don't know. I think this works. This is a bowl from Teriyaki Madness that I use sometimes as a container. They say you can use any size bowl. How about a square one? Can you fit a round lid on a square bowl? Let's find out. All right, that's definitely not going to be airtight because I can tell that it's got some openings here. But it would probably work just as well as Saran wrap would, or at least close to it. I think I'll give it a passing grade for the square bowl. Now for the large lid, I was able to test it on a pretty good sized bowl, and I tested out the stacking feature because they show it being stacked in the fridge. It did work, but that little hard to read dial was kind of in the way and made it a little bit flimsy. So it does stack, but that dial kind of gets in the way a little bit. I got one more size left. Let's try just a regular big plastic bowl. Let's see what we got here. They do stack. I mean, it's a little bit flimsy. I'd be a little bit careful. And this dial kind of makes it not sit evenly because it's kind of resting on there. But you can stack it. I think overall these actually did work as I expected them to. Pretty good idea. So in the end, I think the Uni-Lid worked as advertised. They actually held up well in the dishwasher. This one has been washed and it doesn't seem any worse for wear. I do worry that this dial is eventually going to come off though, because I don't see how this is going to last long term. When I do my update 10 to 12 months from now, ask me then if it's held up, because I plan on using these until then. But I would suggest looking for one of the larger sets because it has the smaller option that'll fit on cans, it has square ones that'll fit on square dishes. So I do think the Uni-Lid works, but I would get a larger set if I were to do it next time. All right, next up, this is an As Seen on TV product called the Chef Wizard. Look at this box. That's got As Seen on TV written all over it. And there's Kathy Mitchell right there. Now this is supposed to be an As Seen on TV kitchen gadget, 6-in-1, not unlike the handy housewife helper that Ralph Cramden pitched on The Honeymooners back in the 50s. Like I said, it was pitched by Kathy Mitchell, who's still on the box. And by the way, speaking of the box, this thing came mangled. This was not me stepping on it. This is how it came. But it was only 10 bucks for a pack of 2 of these, so that's pretty inexpensive. The key feature of this is that it has a lever that allows you to switch from basically like a spatula to a pair of tongs pretty easily. They say you can also use it as a whisk or as a slotted spoon or as a salad server. There's a lot of different supposed uses for it, so I wanted to try it out. So I first tried them out with a pot of pierogies. The pierogies are pretty small and light, and I could take them out of there easily. I could fry them, flip them easily, so I basically use it as tongs. I first tried to use them as a slotted spoon, but it didn't really work as well as a slotted spoon. It worked pretty well as a pair of tongs. So when I picked them up as tongs, they were easy to pick up. The water drained off. I put them in the pan to fry. I was able to flip it in there. It worked pretty well. I guess I could use it like a slotted spoon, but that's not quite as... For picking up, you have to get too much underneath it. It seems a little bit awkward because you have to have such an extreme angle. It seems like it'd be better for tongs. Like that. That's much better. Is that the most generic sounding As Seen on TV product name ever? Maybe. That doesn't mean it won't work though. Usually I use a fork. I just stab this part and flip them. Some people use something like this. Today we're using this. Wow, I think this might be my go-to pierogi flipper after this. Worked quite well. I also tried using it as a whisk for some eggs, and that actually was pretty straightforward, and it worked in that aspect as well. But when it came time to flipping something a little bit heavier, like a chicken breast, that's where the Chef Wizard was not such a wizard after all. Because these ends here get a little bit weak. They don't have a lot of strength. And to me, that leads to what I would say is probably the biggest con of the Chef Wizard, and that's the fact that it's flat. Because you think about it, when you have a spatula, the handle's curved. Slotted spoon, handle's curved. Why is that? Because when you're reaching into a pot, reaching into a pan, you can get around those raised edges. So if you got an item with kind of a high wall to it, with a spatula, you can get underneath the items. Chef Wizard can't really do it. Its flatness makes its usefulness, as far as replacing the other utensils goes, a little bit limited. It's a bit of a design flaw, as far as I'm concerned. So with the pierogies in the pot, I wasn't able to get underneath them very well as a slotted spoon. Even with the chicken and the Ninja Foodi grill, I couldn't get underneath it. As with a lot of hybrid gadgets, it does a lot of things, but it doesn't do them as well as the items are supposed to replace. So as far as usefulness goes, I would say maybe 3 of the 6 would be pretty useful. So a 3-in-1, maybe more than a 6-in-1. I can see how someone with limited space, like in an RV, might use something like this. But if you've got items already in your kitchen, which most people do, I wouldn't expect this to really replace them. I'm gonna keep using it for a while, but I've already got a spot reserved for this in my boneyard, if and when I stop using it. And finally, the last item is a very basic item. It's just a 8-slot utensil rest that I bought for $10 at Bed Bath & Beyond. The only reason I'm actually including this one is because these were actually being advertised a couple months ago, and I got a lot of requests for it. So I wanted to see if it actually lives up to the advertising hype. Now, the kitchen utensil rest doesn't really do anything, but just sit there, and then you put utensils through the slots. The idea is to keep your counter from getting dirty and to have a place to keep your utensils separate. It's made of silicone, it's non-slip. It includes a small raised edge around the outside so the liquid will not drip onto your counter, which is actually a good idea. The one I have could hold 8 utensils. There is a lot of 4 utensil versions out there. I don't think that most people are going to actually put 8 utensils in there because it's probably better having a little bit of space. Plus, I don't think most people use 8 utensils at once. I also found that a wide spatula doesn't really sit in there as well because when you put it on its side, the handle doesn't even really go through the slots. Keeps your countertops clean. You can definitely keep them separate. And this big one right here, it's not even really using the slot, it's just kind of resting on there. There's 8. I'm not sure how realistic that is. By the way, I was going to use these Dream Farm utensils, but I realized they don't need a product like this because they already keep your counter clean because of this notch right here. I'm going to simulate a real world test. I found some diced tomatoes that expired. These expired in 2018. Let's use those for a test. I'm going to get these utensils all nasty with expired tomatoes. Oh no, I got a drippy spoon. I still get out on my counter. I guess I should move it closer to the edge here to avoid drippage. It seems like if you stagger them, they stay apart from each other. How about this? Use a spatula in a bowl like that. Nice, huh? Now this one doesn't really use these slots so much. I'm going to put it at the end right here. Yeah, see, this one's causing problems. I'm going to put that one on last. Chef Wizard. Gotta whisk your tomatoes. It's getting a little bit crowded. I could probably put 8 in there. All right, I got 7 in there. The spatula is just too big, so the spatula's not gonna work. But I got 7 in there, and none of them are touching. Well, maybe that's touching a little bit. But they're almost not touching. Does almost not touching count? Now let's take these off here and see what we got left. All right, my counter was saved from that much stuff. Pretty good. Now there's a bunch of these on Amazon, but I didn't find a lot of 8 slaughters in the same price range, so I'll link the closest I can find on Amazon and the original from Bed Bath & Beyond that I bought several months ago. User ratings are pretty high for this one, so I think if you like what you see in the photos, you'll like this kitchen utensil rest. Stick around for a short Q&A at the end, otherwise let's wrap this thing up. Now if I had to rank them, I would say that they all worked, but there is certainly an order that I would choose them in. Number 5 would be the zip slicer. The problem with the zip slicer is it doesn't cut uniform slices. It has a very specific use for tomatoes or grape tomatoes. I'm not sure how often it's going to get used, how many people are going to demand this. Probably not too often. I think it works, but it's very situational. Number 4 would be the Poach Pods. Now there's nothing wrong with these at all, but kind of like with the zip slicer, it's kind of a specialty item that I don't think a lot of people are going to use too often. Some people will, but most people don't make poached eggs enough to really buy a separate item for them. And I think a lot of people don't feel they need a separate item for poached eggs anyways. Number 3 would be the Chef Wizard. Now it's one of those things where the sum isn't greater than the parts. Each of the 6 advertised features isn't really as good as the utensil is trying to replace. Like I said, I can see this being good for an RV or a dorm or somewhere where you have really limited space. Most people have the utensils already in their kitchens, and this doesn't work better than any of them. Number 2 would be the Uni-Lid, which I actually think I'm going to use this one. My fridge always has containers in it with a plastic wrap, and the plastic wrap is not reusable, unlike the Uni-Lid, and it has the dial that you can tell how long it's been in there. I think it's a pretty good item. I'll actually probably buy another set that has the smaller size for cans and the square one for different dishes, but I think the Uni-Lid actually works. And that leads to number 1, the Utensil Rest. That's right, the most basic generic one of them all is also probably the most useful and the most practical. The rest of them are a little bit gimmicky. This is not gimmicky, it's just a very basic kitchen product that actually does what it's supposed to do. It also probably has the widest appeal. I think more people would get something out of this than all the other items that I looked at today. So to me, the Kitchen Utensil Rest is my top pick of these 5. If you're interested, I have a little Q&A at the end if you want to stick around for that. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. All right, quick bonus Q&A here. I'm still pulling from that YouTube community post from about a month ago. Dark Knight Killa 13 wants to know what the biggest upside and downside to doing YouTube is and what the pros and cons are, and is there something I would try to change regarding it? The biggest upside is that you are in control of what you do. It's a fun job. I really enjoy doing this. And I also enjoy all the people I've got to meet while doing this, because I'm not really a very social person usually, so I've got to meet a lot of people around the world who I'd never get to meet otherwise. And I've also got to use a lot of products I would never use either. The downside is that sometimes I find myself taking on a project that's way too big. I'll sometimes film 3 hours of video for a 10-minute video. It's way overkill. I haven't really got the efficiency down yet, so sometimes I create way more work for myself than I really need to in my attempt at making my videos as good as I can. But I'm not complaining. The upsides far outweigh the downsides being a YouTuber for a living. I have 2 people that asked about my sunglasses. I just want to point out, some people absolutely hate these glasses. And if you are one of those people, I'm sorry, but I'm not wearing them to impress you. I actually like them. I basically just did a search for Amazon for steampunk glasses, came up with this. They're actually pretty cheap too, like 15 bucks. But if you do like these glasses, I will leave a link in the description below. Kevin asked, how has the current situations changed how you review products or purchase those such items? That's actually a pretty good question, because I used to go do my rounds through the ASEAN TV store, through Bed Bath & Beyond, through the Walmart ASEAN TV section, Fry's. I used to kind of make my rounds in stores. I can't do that anymore, so I have to plan way ahead because Amazon's shipping is kind of slower than it used to be. I have to do all my shopping online now, so I'm having to really plan out ahead more than I used to. I also can't go out to locations. I used to go down to Boulder City or go drive around. I just can't, so I'm kind of stuck here. I mean, I'm certainly not complaining, but my options as far as filming outside of this location, they don't exist. Punky Pink 83, AK Emily, was surprised to know that I had twins. Yes, Brandon and Noah are twins. In fact, one of the choices for Noah's name was going to be Emily, but that's another story, how her name was chosen. Joey K actually wanted to know what brought me to Nevada. Was I born there? I was not born there. I'm from Jacksonville originally, but I've been in Nevada for 26 years, so I mean, I'm kind of a local. I hope I would be considered a local. I lived in Southern California. My parents came here with a business, and I came here for the summer to help them and never left, because I actually liked it better here. Especially this time of year. May and October are kind of the best weather-wise here. So that's all I've got, guys. I appreciate your questions. I'll hit more in the next video, and hopefully you guys are staying safe, and I'll see you next time.